If at first you don't succeed, try, and try again, ideally with a more favorable Supreme Court. That has been the strategy for certain conservative groups for decades. And they have a new target now, gay marriage. A new group calling itself Greater Than is trying to overturn Obergefell v. Hodges, the Supreme Court ruling which legalized same-sex marriage. They're ostensibly doing this to protect the children. Take a listen.
When Obergefell redefined marriage to include same-sex couples, it was billed as a win for adult equality. In reality, it created inequality for children. It made our children less than.
It made our children less than. Conservative groups love to frame their arguments around protecting children. I would ask, of course, where was this concern over the Epstein files or when the Trump administration worked to defund infant nutrition or preschool, or for that matter, used 5-year-olds as bait in immigration raids? But that's neither here nor there. You might recall that same-sex marriage was confirmed by the skin of its teeth in a 5-4 ruling from a Supreme Court that was far more liberal than it is today. There wasn't a Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett or a Brett Kavanaugh back then. And if you're thinking to yourself, gay marriage is safe, people are worrying too much, the political battle is over, it'll be here forever, well, let's talk about another right that people once called safe, reproductive care. Here's a reminder of what Justice Kavanaugh said about Roe v. Wade during his Senate confirmation hearings.
I said that it's settled as a precedent of the Supreme Court. And one of the important things to keep in mind about Roe v. Wade is that it has been reaffirmed many times over the past 45 years.
Less than 4 years after he said that, Kavanaugh voted to rescind the federal right to an abortion, reversing Roe v. Wade. But that vote did not actually happen overnight. It happened after nearly 50 years of work by conservative groups. They faced repeated setbacks and often failed until they didn't. The same thing happened with the end of affirmative action and with the gutting of the Voting Rights Act. Outside groups spent decades doing work behind the scenes until they got what they wanted. Roe v. Wade was settled law right up until the fact it wasn't. Affirmative action, also an established precedent until it wasn't. The Voting Rights Act was the crown jewel of the civil rights movement until it, too, was gutted. Are we going to look back at this moment and say, gay marriage was the law of the land until it wasn't? Joining us now to discuss all of this is Kelly Robinson, CEO of the Human Rights Campaign. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us, especially while Bad Bunny happens to be dancing away on another channel. We really appreciate it. I want to ask you how worried you are about whether the courts may try to overturn Obergefell and what groups like yours may be doing to prepare for that possibility.
Look, this is concerning. And I think that anybody that's seen this play out, you should be aware, but you shouldn't be panicked at this point. Obergefell is still the law of the land. We passed the Respect for Marriage Act with bipartisan support. That law is on the books. But I think what you see through this campaign is a fringe and extremist movement that is trying to see how far the public and the courts will allow them to go. And while their end goal may be a Supreme Court decision, the erosion of our rights is already taking place in too many ways. I mean, you just look at Texas that last year passed a law saying that judges did not have to marry same-sex couples. That makes the right to marriage in Texas for some a right in name only. We have to be paying attention here and mobilizing the support that we know is enjoyed across the country for marriage equality.
Kelly, what do you make of the approach that they are trying now, right? They tried for years to make it about same-sex marriage. Now they're using a legal argument about protecting children, as Catherine laid out. Does the fact that they're appealing to this culture war, the same way that they did with trans rights in the run-up to the last election to attack the Vice President Kamala Harris in her campaign, do you see that being a way in for them into the broader cultural debate and then the legal debate?
I think this is a dog whistle that falls flat. I mean, like was said earlier, if you look at the things that they're prioritizing, they've got nothing to do with making our families more safe, more whole, or the world more affordable for people. I do think that this is an opportunity for us to go back to telling the stories that were actually the foundation of us winning marriage equality. This is about humanity and dignity for every single person. The foundation of the Obergefell decision was about Jim Obergefell suing and fighting to ensure that his name could be on his husband's death certificate. That's what that was all about. Edie Windsor's fight was about ensuring that her late wife's estate could be transferred to her without jumping through more hoops, just like any other couple. It was about dignity and respect. And I think that there's a chance to get back to that. But we have to remember that regardless of this campaign, 70% of Americans still support marriage equality. Regardless of this campaign, almost 30% of Generation Z are identifying as a member of our community. They are fighting a future that has already arrived, but we've got to make sure that our movement is showing up to hold the line.